Right, so get ready because today we're going to take a deep dive into this fascinating world of behavioral economics.
Yeah.
You sent over a ton of material for this one, so I can tell that you are ready to really get into it.
Absolutely. I think it's easy to just stay at the level of like fun facts and anecdotes, but we really want to go beyond that, right? Like
Yeah.
look at the core principles, the research behind it, even like, how it's being applied to change the way we shop to how we design policies for an entire country.
Okay, love it.
Well,
So first things first, for anybody listening who might be like, wait, what is behavioral economics? How would you define it? Just a quick elevator pitch.
hmm. Simply put, it's the study of how psychology plays into our decisions about money. And it's interesting because traditional economics is based on this idea that we're all like perfectly rational and we're always making, the most logical choices to get the most benefit. But behavioral economics comes in as like, hold on a second. Humans are not that simple, you know? Our emotions, all our biases, even just the situation we're in, it all plays a huge role in what we decide to do.
So it's like economics meets psychology. And all of a sudden we have this whole new way of understanding why we do the things we do.
Yeah,
Not just with our money, but also, our time, our jobs, everything.
you got it. And what's super cool is it's not even a brand new thing. The roots go way back. Like Herbert Simon, he was already challenging that whole idea of perfect rationality way back in the 50s. And then, Kahneman and Tversky, they came along in the 70s and 80s with their work on these things called cognitive biases, and it really changed everything. Their research was basically showing that our brains, like, they take these mental shortcuts, which they called heuristics, to help us make decisions fast. But sometimes those shortcuts can lead us to make, well, like systematic mistakes in our thinking.
Okay, now we're talking. But heuristics,
Yeah.
biases, it's all a little bit abstract. Can you give me an example of how this plays out in, real life?
Oh, totally. Just think about the classic buy one get one free deal that's playing on something called the framing effect. Basically, we react differently to the same information depending on how it's presented. So, the word free, it triggers something emotional even if the deal overall it's not even really the best deal.
So marketers are using this behavioral economic stuff to, let's be honest, kind of trick us into spending more.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, behavioral economics isn't inherently about manipulation, right? It's really about understanding. And sure, companies, they're absolutely using these insights to get better at marketing, but it's also being used for good.
Hmm.
Like governments are using it to nudge people towards making healthier choices or encourage them to save for retirement, stuff like that.
Okay, so less tricking people and more like working with, how do we say, human nature to get the results we want, whether that's, selling more stuff or just improving how things work in society. I like it. But where do all these insights actually come from? It's not just like people sitting around making observations. Right? There's some actual science involved, right?
No, absolutely. There's a ton of serious research behind it. Behavioral economists, they use all sorts of methods like experiments, surveys, even studying people out in the real world. They're constantly testing their theories and trying to understand, what actually drives their decisions.
So it's not just some armchair theory. It's being put to the test in, the real world.
Exactly. And one of the biggest takeaways from all this research is that context, it matters, like a lot. The decisions we make, they don't happen in a vacuum. It's all about the environment, how choices are presented to us, even our emotions in that moment.
That's true. If I'm already stressed out,
Mm,
I'm definitely way more likely to buy something impulsively.
exactly. And companies are catching on. There was this one case, it was in your research, a travel insurance company. They couldn't figure out why nobody was taking their, get this, free first year offer.
Wait, what? Free insurance? Who wouldn't want that?
Right. But when they, really started to look into it, they found out that customers were actually worried about, forgetting to cancel after the free year was up. They were afraid of suddenly getting hit with a bill. That fear, even if it was, pretty unlikely, it was enough to stop them.
So it wasn't the price, it was the potential for a bad experience later on, huh?
That's it. And this highlights something called loss aversion. Basically, for us humans, the pain of losing something, it hits us harder than the happiness of gaining something equal. It's crazy, right? Like, even the possibility of a tiny loss, it can outweigh a much bigger potential gain.
So, okay. So this insurance company, they figure this out. What do? Did they just ditch the free offer?
Nope. They kept the free offer, but they got smarter with their messaging. They started emphasizing that people would get reminders before the free year was up, so they'd have plenty of time to cancel. Just this tiny change, it addressed people's anxiety, and boom, 300% increase in signups.
300%. That's insane. It's like just by knowing the psychology behind people's choices, you can make huge changes. And they didn't even like change the product, just how they talked about it.
Exactly. And this kind of thing, it's happening everywhere. Another example from your stuff, there was this bank in Southeast Europe. They were trying to get customers to switch to these new, better account packages. They offered like big savings, but people just wouldn't budge. They wanted to stick with their old crummy accounts.
Oh my gosh, that's so me. Sometimes I just can't even think about comparing all these different options.
Yeah.
It's easier to just stick with what I know, even if it's not the best deal.
Well, and that's the principle at work, right? It's called inertia. Humans, we just like to stick with what's familiar, Even if there's something better out there, we're wired to be efficient, and sometimes that means just taking the easiest route. But, that doesn't always mean it's the best choice in the long run.
So how did this bank get people to, break out of that inertia? Did they just throw a bunch of information at them?
It's funny, they did the opposite. They actually simplified the info, made it super clear to compare the different packages, and get this, they changed the default. So now the better package was already pre-selected for people.
So instead of having to opt in to the better option, it was already chosen for you.
Exactly. They just took that extra step out, leveraged the power of defaults, and saw, get this, a 387% increase in people choosing the better packages.
Okay, that's two examples where just understanding a bit of behavioral economics led to some serious improvement.
Makes you wonder why they don't teach this stuff in school, huh? But, before we go too far down that road, let's get back to the practical stuff. You said this is not all about marketing, right? What other areas is this being used in?
Well, you've got some fascinating retail examples in your research.
Yeah.
Retail, it's like behavioral economics central. One of the cases you sent over was about this skincare company, and they were having a real tough time with their three-step regimen. The products, top quality, but they just couldn't get those sales numbers up.
Okay, I could see where this might be tricky. The skincare market, it's so saturated, right? Everyone's always looking for the magic bullet. Was it a price thing where the product's just, like, not that good?
It was neither, actually. The problem was choice, or rather too much of it. So many variations for each step. It was just overwhelming for the customer. Choice overload is a real thing. You think giving people more options helps them decide, but it can actually totally paralyze them. Ugh. Yes, I've been there. You're standing in the aisle staring at rows and rows of bottles, and your brain just shuts down. You grab the same thing you always get. So how did they fix it? Did they just, cut back their product line?
They did do a bit of streamlining, yeah. They regrouped the products by skin type instead of step, which, helped visually. But the really interesting part is they tweaked their messaging. They started highlighting expert recommendations and using testimonials from customers.
Ah, clever. It's like, don't just take our word for it. Listen to what the dermatologists and all these happy customers are saying. That makes total sense. People trust an outside source way more than the company trying to, sell them something.
Exactly. And it worked. They saw a 128% increase in purchase intention just from those changes.
Whoa, 128%. That's huge. It really proves how much of our buying decisions are, psychological, even when we think we're being all logical. Speaking of psychology, you sent another example about a high-end fashion brand that was struggling with online sales. Now, you'd think people buying, luxury stuff, they wouldn't be as easily influenced by these nudges.
You would, right. But even when you're shopping high-end, you're still human. This particular brand, their problem was that their product descriptions were too factual, all about materials construction. But they weren't really tapping into, what drives those luxury purchases in the first place.
Yeah, it's about more than just buying a fancy bag, right? It's about, status, exclusivity, even belonging.
That's it. They partnered with a behavioral science firm, and they developed a tool to figure out their customers' core needs, like confidence boosting, fitting in, that desire for social status. Turns out those were huge motivators.
So it's like they were selling a feeling, not just a product, huh? So how did they, actually use that in their online store?
They revamped their descriptions, yeah. Made them speak directly to those needs. But they also, this is smart, they addressed any potential risk aversion. Instead of just saying, made from the finest Italian leather, they might say, imagine the confidence you'll exude carrying this exquisitely crafted bag, knowing you're investing in timeless elegance.
Okay, yeah, I can see how that would be more persuasive. It's not just features anymore. It's the experience, the emotions you associate with the product.
And the data shows it works. 51% conversion increase in the U.S. market just by tweaking the messaging.
Okay, so there's a pattern here, right? Companies They can understand these hidden motivators, these psychological, like, levers. It's like they're cracking the code of human behavior. But we've mostly talked about how businesses are using this. What about, us? Can regular people use this stuff to make better decisions in our own lives?
Absolutely. One of the most powerful ways is in goal setting. You know how we usually focus on the positive outcome. I want to lose weight or I want to save money. But research shows we're actually way more motivated by avoiding loss.
So instead of thinking about what I'll gain, I should think about what I'll lose if I don't get there.
Exactly. It's just a shift in how you're thinking about it, but it can make all the difference. Like, if you're trying to quit smoking, instead of focusing on the long-term health benefits, think about what you'll lose. Your health, energy, even years of your life.
Wow, that's way more powerful than picturing myself with healthy lungs in 20 years. It makes it feel like real.
And it applies to anything, saving money. Think about what you'll miss out on if you don't reach your savings goal. That vacation you've always wanted, that down payment on a house, the feeling of security.
This is making me rethink how I do New Year's resolutions. It's not just about setting positive goals, it's about framing them so they tap into that fear of loss.
Yeah.
So cool. Are there any other ways we can use behavioral economics to kind of, hack our own brains?
Oh, there are tons. We've touched on defaults already, right? Like how that bank got people to switch packages. Well, you can use that to create good habits too.
Okay, I'm listening. What does that look like in real life?
Think about something you want to do more of, like exercise. Instead of fighting yourself every morning, make it the default. Lay out your workout clothes the night before. So when you wake up, it's the easiest option. Want to eat healthier? Prep your lunches on Sunday. That way you're not tempted to order takeout during the week.
So it's all about removing those decision points, those moments where you're most likely to give in to, temptation or just laziness.
Exactly. You make the thing you want to do the easiest, most automatic choice. That way you bypass those moments of weakness and build habits that actually stick. It's like you're designing how you make choices so the best decisions are the ones that take the least effort.
Wow. So we've covered a lot, the history of behavioral economics, how it's being used by companies, and even how we can use it ourselves.
Mhm.
I'm feeling way more equipped to, make better decisions. But before we wrap up, I'm curious, where's all this going? What's next for this field?
That's a great question. One area that's really exciting is where behavioral economics meets technology. Think about AI, like those personal assistant things, but they're designed to work with our biases, nudging us in the right direction without being annoying about it.
Okay, now that sounds futuristic, like you have a little behavioral economics angel on your shoulder helping you make good choices.
Kind of, yeah. And that's just one example. There's so much potential in like healthcare where we can personalize how we treat people, taking into account their motivation, what's holding them back from making changes.
So instead of giving everybody the same advice, we could tailor the approach based on like how people actually decide things.
Exactly. And even bigger picture, governments and policymakers, they're using these insights to create more effective policies. Think energy conservation, organ donation, even financial literacy programs. If we understand what drives human behavior, we can create systems that actually work.
This is really making me think. It feels like behavioral economics. It's about more than just knowing why we make choices. It's about empowering us,
Yeah.
to make better choices as individuals and as a society for a healthier, happier, and more sustainable world.
I couldn't have put it better myself. It's a field with incredible potential. I'm excited to see where it goes next.
I feel like we've barely scratched the surface here. There's so much to this behavioral economics thing, so many ways we can use it. But, for everyone listening, they're probably thinking, okay, that was cool, but what do I do with this now? What's like the one thing you hope people take away from this?
If you remember just one thing, let it be this. Being aware of something. That's power. Now that you know these biases, these tendencies, they exist, you can start to spot them in your own life, right? Like next time you're about to buy something or make any decision, big or small, take a second and just ask yourself, what's really making me do this? Is it something I actually need? Or is it some clever marketing trick, playing with my emotions? Am I stuck doing the same old thing just out of habit? Or is this really the best choice for me?
So it's like we're shining a light on those moments where we're on autopilot and actually becoming more aware of the choices we're making.
Right.
That's great. But knowing about these biases, that's one thing. Actually overcoming them, that's a whole other story, right? Any advice for how to actually use this knowledge to make better choices?
Oh, for sure. One strategy is to pre-commit to your decisions. So say you're prone to impulse shopping, right? Set a budget and stick to it no matter what.
Yeah.
Or if you're trying to save money, automate your savings contributions. That way you don't even have to think about it.
It's like you're taking away the temptation before you even have a chance to mess up. Smart. Any other mental tricks we can use?
Don't forget about reframing. Remember that whole thing about loss aversion? You can actually use that to your advantage. Focus on what you'll lose if you don't do something, like struggling to exercise. Think about what happens if you stay inactive. Your health, your energy, how easily you move. Suddenly skipping that workout, it doesn't sound so fun anymore, right?
Okay, so we've got pre-commitment, reframing. What else is in this behavioral economics toolkit?
Social influence is huge EE. We can't forget that. We're social creatures, right? The
Mm.
people around us, they influence us more than we realize. So if you're trying to achieve something, surround yourself with people who support that. Join a running group, find a workout buddy, or even join an online community for people with similar financial goals.
Yeah, you're building a support system that actually encourages the behavior you want. Makes total sense. And I guess that also means, avoiding the negative influences too. Trying to quit smoking. Maybe you spend less time with friends who smoke a lot.
You got it. Your environment, it shapes your choices in a big way. Make sure it's working for you, not against you. And remember, this isn't just about each of us changing individually. Behavioral economics can be used for big change, on a societal level.
Now that's exciting. We talked about how governments are using this stuff to get people to be healthier or save money. But are there other ways we're using this to, tackle bigger issues?
Oh, yeah, tons. One that's really promising is environmental sustainability. Researchers are using this stuff to make programs that encourage people to use less energy, conserve water, just make more eco-friendly choices in general.
So instead of lecturing people about saving the planet, we're actually making it easier for them to, actually do something about it.
Right. Some utility companies now, they give you personalized feedback on your energy use, even compare you to your neighbors. It plays on that whole keeping up with the Joneses thing, except this time it's for a good cause.
That's amazing. It's like turning peer pressure into a force for good. Where else is this stuff making a difference?
Public health is another big one. It's being used to encourage vaccination, get people to eat healthier, even increase those organ donation rates. When we understand what's stopping people from doing something, we can create solutions that actually work, solutions that people will actually use.
This is really inspiring stuff. We're not just understanding human behavior. We're actually using it to make the world better.
That's the whole point, right? Behavioral economics, it's giving us the tools to actually act on good intentions. It's recognizing that we all have these biases, but we don't have to judge ourselves for it. We can use that knowledge to make smarter choices, choices that benefit everyone.
Okay, I'm going to need a minute to let all this sink in. This deep dive has been, well, eye-opening is an understatement. We started thinking about economics as this dry, boring subject, and now it's this powerful way to understand ourselves and the world.
That's what I love about it. It's both intellectually fascinating and super practical. It's about understanding how complex we are, but also using that to actually make a difference.
So, for anybody listening who wants to learn more, where should they go? What are some good resources?
Oh, there's tons of great books out there. Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely, Nudge by Thaler and Sunstein. Those are great places to start. And honestly, there are tons of podcasts and online resources too. Just search for behavioral economics and get ready to go down the rabbit hole.
And I'm sure this is just the beginning of our behavioral economics journey. I'm already thinking about how we can use this in, our own lives and work.
I'm excited to see what we discover. It's a huge field, always changing. There's always something new to learn.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. Listeners, we hope you enjoyed exploring the world of behavioral economics with us. Remember, awareness is the first step to making better choices. So keep those biases in check, nudge yourself towards your goals, and keep making brilliant decisions.
Stay curious and keep exploring.